All right, we are back, and we are back with a man whose voice is so velvety smooth it makes Morgan Freeman sound like Fran Drescher.
Dude, did you? First of all, hold on a second. I didn't. Did you practice that? Oh my goodness.
So we're here with Terry Trayvick. He is an entrepreneur. He's a CEO. He has business experience way beyond myself or probably anyone that I've ever met. And we would love to get your perspective on just discipline in the workplace. But the first thing we wanted to do, Terry, is ask you, because Mark and I have been discussing it, what is an area of your life that you've struggled to find or maintain some discipline?
Well, Tim, it's a good question. One of the things you left out is how much, I love the Lord. And what's interesting is the biggest struggle I realized a couple of years ago was my discipline of getting up every morning and having a devoted time with the Lord. There's a funny story, by the way, on how I discovered it. But it appeared that around May of June of every year, my devotional life would slip, and I'd get up in the morning like I usually do and do my prayer and get everything organized. In fact, I'd get up in the morning and I'd rush off and start just working. And first year it happened, second year it happened. It's like, what is going on? Why every May and June do I lose that discipline? What I realized was when the NBA playoffs start, stay up to watch the West Coast games.
Yeah.
I live on the East Coast.
I mean, no, but yes.
Okay.
And next thing I know, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's hard to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning when you go to sleep at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
I told my wife one day, I said, I finally figured it out. The reason why I lose my prayer discipline in the late spring, early summer is because of the NBA playoffs.
Wow.
What's my solution to it? Which is the obvious question, right? But now what I do is I record all the games.
All right.
Get up in the morning, do my devotion, and I watch the games before I hear about it on the news.
Nice.
The last 3 or 4 years, I haven't had a problem with that discipline. But that's the one thing that I discovered years ago where discipline was a problem for me.
I love that. I've never heard that story. That's a good one. Thank you for sharing that. And, it's nice to know that great leaders still have some chinks in their armor and are still discovering some stuff. So that's good. I like that.
That is good.
Yeah, you should never put the last dance before the Lord. Put it that way, right?
Yes.
We also have been watching the MJ series, right?
Yeah, I need to remind Mason about that. He's been struggling with that.
Right.
Yeah, so that means you have to do that whole don't talk to me about it, or you plug your ears and do the la la la.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so I definitely get up in the morning, do my devotions, and then I turn on the TV. I do the same thing with Monday Night Football too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had the same problem with Monday Night Football. My Tuesdays were always bad.
You're more dedicated than me. I've just, in my old age, I've just gotten to where I just don't care as much on the Monday night. And so I know Mason's going to update me. That's my middle son. He's going to update me in the morning, or I'm going to get a text from Ethan, my oldest son, about, man, did you see that play? And my usual response is, no, I didn't see that play. I was asleep, guys. If it doesn't finish by about 10:30, I'm out.
Right.
That's great. I love it. Well, Terry, tell us in our audience, for those who are going to be listening and watching, give them a little bit of more background about you. You've obviously got a lot of experience, but can you give us a little bit of background about, your studies and your business acumen?
Sure. I'm a undergrad degree from University of Cincinnati in industrial management, which is basically a combination of business and engineering, and master's degrees from Columbia Business School in New York, in both finance and marketing. All my life I felt like I was, born to be a business person. I love it. All aspects of it, the leadership, the problem solving, helping people, helping others, all those things come together for me in business. My career, I've spent, a couple of years at General Motors in manufacturing, spent about 9 years with Procter & Gamble, and, on the finance side, about a year at a company called Sara Lee, and then about 8 or 9 years at a company called R. Donnelley, where I was fortunate enough in my last role there to be a global president for a $1 billion division of the company with about 5,000 employees around the world. So that's my time in corporate. In 2006, I left and went to work for my church for about a year. We just bought a big campus. We had 2 campuses, so I figured I'd spend some time trying to figure out what I was going to do next. Went to work for my church, and then started a consulting business. And out of that, started a few other businesses that brought me up to today. My consulting business is really focused on helping Christian businesses. I helped companies throughout the country. Had many clients. One of my main clients is in Texas, where you guys are. I help a client in Chicago as part of the Covenant Church that they own 14 retirement communities around the country. But it is, like I said, part of the Covenant Church, and I've been helping them for a few years, and several other companies. I've been providing advisory services for them. But I love it. I love the opportunity to deal with different companies from different industries, different people. But like I said, I was designed to do this, and I really enjoy it.
Hey, we probably weren't going to land on this, but I'd forgotten you spent a year working for your church. So moving from the marketplace, corporate marketplace, to working with, vocational ministry people, what were a couple of things about the discipline difference between the marketplace and the church that were real stark and apparent as you jumped into that?
I would say, there is a lot of discipline around the ministry, right? And preparation, getting ready for the Sunday experience, even the weekday experiences. Probably not as much discipline around managing the finances, managing even maybe some leadership things on, people management, et cetera, people development and those sort of things. Some of those things became sort of obvious to me. Not always necessarily a role fit, if you will. Then what my experience is with the church is sometimes we'll find the people who are available, and sometimes we put them in a role as opposed to knowing what the role is and then finding the people to fit the role.
Yeah.
Things that I witnessed. I'm not saying that applies to every church, but those are some of the things that I experienced.
No, it does. I'm going on record and say, it's a constant struggle. I think as the churches grow and the number of people that they're having to lead and manage, we do start developing some more of those corporate frameworks. Just the same way with a family. A family of 3 is run differently than a family of 200. Right. So I was interested in what kind of showed up on the radar when you jumped into that. That's good.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with the interview portion of today's episode. In the meantime, we want to continue to give you the opportunity to let your voice be heard. If you have a topic idea or question you would like to have discussed on the show, we would love to hear from you. All you have to do is follow the link in the description and submit your idea. And don't forget, every submission is an entry into our weekly giveaway, so click that link and tell us what you think. Terry, what have you felt like for you and just developing yourself and your own skills in business? How have you felt like you've had to kind of work out discipline or areas of discipline to kind of help you out and help you kind of keep taking steps forward?
Yeah, some of the things that I've discovered about myself personally, and when we talk about discipline, we're really talking about self-discipline. How do you kind of self-discipline yourself to, be consistent, get up every day, get things done, stay organized, et cetera. One of the things I discovered that's really important for me personally is the value of sleep. If my sleep is off, I lose discipline. I get very distracted. I'm tired, and it's hard for me to, stay focused and to keep going. And that goes back to the story of, staying up late for football.
Right.
Not only did I miss my devotion, I was a wreck throughout the day as well, than getting anything done. And there's no worse feeling for me than to get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and then around noon the next day, you're barely getting by, and you look up, you realize you've gotten about 1 hour's worth of work done in 8 hours.
Wow.
For me, sleep is the number one discipline that I try to adhere to make sure I get at least at a minimum 6 hours, but try to get about 7.5 hours for me. That's what works for me. The other thing from a discipline standpoint, I'm always trying to think big. How do you get big things done? And it's hard to be disciplined towards a big thing because it's so far out there. You gotta stay focused. So always try to take those big things and break them into manageable pieces, so I can be disciplined towards each of those pieces. And then it just, success then drives more success. Mm-hmm. So finding big things, breaking those things down so you can have measurable results, so you can feel good that you're actually making progress along the way, is something else that I use from a discipline standpoint.
Hey, could you land on that for just a second there, Terry? It's really important. I love what you're saying. So is there an illustration or a current iteration of that sometime in the last 6 to 12 months in working with these companies where you've had to help them take, hey, this is a big ticket, big picture, big initiative thing, and we got to figure out how to break this down. What's one that you could share with us?
Yeah, without divulging any secrets from any particular company, one of the companies I'm working with in your area, the CEO has great big vision. That's kind of a gift that God has given him, and he'll be the first to say, hey, I know where I want to go, but I can't necessarily build the building blocks to get us there, right? So one of the ways I help them is I get figure out what's on his heart and where he wants to go. In fact, when he first hired me, he told me he was about an $8 million company. He said, I want to be $150 million. And can you help me figure it out? So one of the first things I did for him was to, first of all, one concept I'll share with the listeners out there is you can't make money until you can make money on paper. That's a concept that I always try to share with my clients. You have to be able to prove it in the model that you can make money before you can actually do it. If you can't prove it in the model, you're probably not going to make the money. So one of the first things I did for him was build a model that gave him a roadmap on how to go from where he was at $8 million to a $150 million company. So we broke that down, right? And broke that into like 4 different strategies. Now we've taken that big picture that's way out there to, okay, now here are the 4 things we got to do to get there. Then you take those 4 things, say, okay, here's what I have to do this year for each of those 4 things. Now here's what I have to do this year for each of those 4 things. Say, now here's what you have to do in order to support this one. Here's what you have to do. The other person has to do to support this one. And just keep breaking those things down. And then it turns into a budget, month by month budget. And now, as long as we're hitting our target this month, now we can go hit our target next month. Next thing you know, you look up, I've hit my target for the year. Next thing you look up, 5 years later, I've reached $150 million and beyond, et cetera. So that's an example of taking that big picture, breaking it down to its detail, but trying to stay disciplined around what you can see and control right in front of you today. But you understand how it ties into the bigger picture.
I love that. So if that's true, then does that allow for maybe a person or a leader who doesn't have some of that discipline skill set? Then do you allow that, hey, if I don't have that, one, I can either grow it or I can bring some people around me that actually are skilled in that, and that's as good a solution? Is that how that works?
Yeah, one of the notes I made to myself in preparation for this discussion was another key point to discipline is having an accountability partner. So you can almost see that person that you bring around you as your accountability partner. So if you, Mark, say, hey, here's where I want to go in the future, and Tim all of a sudden see you getting off track from that, it's his responsibility to remind you, this is not what you said, Mark. You're going off path. Let's get refocused, get redisciplined. And that's what I do for a lot of my clients is keep them focused. A lot of consultants can tell you, give you advice on where you should go. But one of my things that I provide as well is not only tell you where I think you can go, but help you get there.
Right.
As well.
Have you found that there are personal practices that you've had to do for just your own, I guess, your own business stuff to kind of keep yourself, whether it be, setting up your calendar or, you already talked about getting some sleep, but any other personal practices you think would be helpful?
Well, I don't enjoy keeping my calendar. I can tell you that.
Do you hire out for that? Like what are the share some of the disciplines, but then also give us one that you go, I'm having to outsource on this one. I'm not doing this.
So I do have an assistant, but I try to do some things on my own every now and then, and I always mess them up. I miss a lot of meetings because I forget to put on my calendar and that sort of thing. If you go back, going back to my corporate life, for 20-something years, always had someone who would just put my itinerary on my desk, who would interrupt my meeting and say, hey, you got another meeting, or the car's waiting for you outside to take you to this place, or here's your tickets for the airport, or, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember a story when I was in corporate, and all of a sudden the CFO I was working for at the time had an emergency, and their person was gone, and they asked me to make some copies for her real quick. Hey, Terry, you might want to make a copy for me. I said, no, not a problem. And I ran the copies. I think it was sideways and all, all bad order. She was like, good thing you're good at what you do, right? I would never hire you for this. But so there's some things that I'm just not good at. God didn't design us all to be great at everything.
We hope you're enjoying today's episode of Career Goals. If you would like more information about Terry's company, Level 5 Management Consulting, you can find those links in the show description. Oh, and while you're there, because of course you want to be notified of new episodes, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button on our podcast or YouTube page.
What are the things that are part of your discipline, your work life around your business, and not working with the other people, but how do you run your business with those disciplines?
Yeah, it's stuff like like administrative stuff. I mean, I'm more of a big picture thinker. I'm more of a executor on how to drive results. But some of the smaller things, if it's outside of business, if it's more administrative and that kind of thing for me, I don't know if there's enough discipline in the world for me to want to do that. Right? It's just not how I'm built to. I mean, it actually literally pains me to want to put something in a file cabinet.
You're really freeing up some people right now. There are people listening to this they've been beating themselves up for 10 years or 20 years going, man, I ought to be able to do this. And I'm hearing a great leader say, no, you shouldn't necessarily ought to be able to do that or even want to do that. There's some other ways here.
So yeah, I think what to be this. I think the key is be disciplined around the things that you were designed to do.
Yeah, I love that.
Not necessarily be disciplined around everything that needs to get done. Because one of your disciplines, to your point, Mark, is be disciplined enough to hire somebody who may be better at doing that other thing.
So if there's the top three that you say, these are the three disciplines that are probably the biggest bang for the buck, I get the most ROI on these three disciplines in my personal business, what would those look like?
So prayer is one for me. Prayer is probably the number one thing that I do while I'm awake. So sleep is I'm asleep, but the things that I need to be disciplined in when I'm awake is prayer. I mean, that's far and above all of them. I have to have that discipline that helps me prepare my mind. It gives me clarity of thought. It gives me insight. It gives me wisdom. All the things that I need to have in order to help advise my clients. Obviously, I've got a lot of experience, but some of my best advice comes after me going to, having a season of prayer or fasting. Is another one. A discipline of fasting on a regular basis is important. I never want to get to the point of what I'm doing now where it's all about what I know, right? It's got to be more something bigger than me in order to help my clients really get to where they're trying to go. I find that, and fortunately, most of my clients have the same belief system that I have, so I can actually have that kind of communication with them. Through my prayer this morning, here's some of the insight that I'm getting that I think we ought to consider, right? Sort of thing. So that's a big discipline. Another one is focus. Not trying to do too many big things. Really focusing on a couple of big things and trying to stay focused on those things until they get done. it's so easy in this life to get distracted.
Mm-hmm.
It happens so fast, right? Whether it's in our personal lives, our marriage, within a business, you know, you can come up with a strategy, and then most companies go right back to just running the business they always ran, the way they always ran it before they even create the strategy. So the strategy ends up getting put on the shelf because nobody has time for it. It takes a discipline to execute a strategy. So staying and focus is one of those disciplines. Saying we are going to focus on getting this strategy done. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that accountability partner, holding each other accountable, say, we're going to get this done. There's this book called, I think it's titled One Thing, if you haven't read it. And that's a very good book. There are a lot of concepts in it, but within that book, it really is a book on focus. They're basically saying you got 8 hours of a day, you got to take a couple of hours each day and focus on one thing that's really important that you're trying to move forward. And that may be every day you do that, that you're focusing on that one thing. So those are some of the habits.
Yeah, Terry, I love what you're saying, and I think it's great for us as just a reminder. First of all, when I thought about all this, I'm thinking, well, you got to do a calendar and you got to do this or that. But first of all, like Mark was saying, you actually freed a lot of people up to say, no, that if that's not your thing, you know, you need to kind of get somebody who is really good at that, and utilize them and their gifts and their talents. But secondly, just the getting away from the minutia or whatever you want to call it of the daily work thing and starting to focus more on ourselves. I mean, this discipline is more of a, like you said at the beginning, it's self-discipline. And I think that's really important that we recognize that that's actually what gives us the tools to take those steps forward and actually start to create that better, what we're trying to do is a better balance, you know, in life and with our family.
Yeah, one more quick story. I remember I was in corporate America, and people used to, you know, ask me questions about my home life and that kind of thing. And one of the things I remember telling my people is like, I'd rather make $1 billion investment decision than to choose what color paint I'm going to put on the wall. It's just how I'm wired, right? I don't want to. Please don't ask me about what color paint. Just tell me what color you want it painted. I don't want to think about it. Should we buy this $1 billion piece of equipment versus that? I'll do that all day long because that's how I'm wired, right? So you have to think about how you're wired. And discipline is not about, because some people think discipline is about, I put together 10 things that I need to do and I'm checking them all off. Do I have that discipline to say I checked off 10 things off? That is a form of discipline, but I don't think it's a earth mover type discipline. And I'm talking about doing big things, right? If you're doing big things, pick those big things you want to go after and stay disciplined on that. And all the little things that need to happen around it, figure out how you're going to delegate that to whoever's best able to do that.
I love it, man. Thank you for helping us today. I know you're helping a lot of people right now. This has been fantastic.
You don't want me to do a Morgan commercial or anything before I leave?
I mean, I guess you can. I didn't realize we were going to that level until Tim landed your introduction. So we're going to have to save that for the next podcast. We're going to do some cameos.
I'll call you later to do my outgoing voicemail, you know, so people,
His sleep cycle recording that he's going to use for his sleep cycles now.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Well, good to see you both.
Have a good one, brother. Talk to you later.
All right, you too. Take care.